One of the great mysteries of Spongebob Squarepants has always been, and always will be, the Krabby Patty Secret Formula. As much as Plankton has schemed and plotted his way towards the secret formula, he has always fallen short and disappointed himself. But it turns out that if Plankton just had access to the internet, and the Spongebob fanbase no less, he might not have to try so hard, because there are some really solid theories about what the secret could be. But one stands above all the rest, and after really thinking about it, it feels like the secret ingredient inside a Krabby Patty may be more obvious than anyone's cared to realize. Trust me, you're going to be kicking yourself when you hear this and realize how genius it is, but the real secret ingredient in the Krabby Patty formula is absolutely nothing. That's right, absolutely nothing. Nada. Zilch. This theory originally came from a user on Reddit, but has quickly gained traction and is starting to seem too good to not be true. According to the theory, Mr. Krabs created the idea of a secret ingredient as a business ploy for multiple reasons, all of which are absolutely genius. Not only would the concept of a secret ingredient that makes your food better than all the rest draw in more customers to a restaurant based on intrigue alone, but it would also be a great way to distract your enemies. Anyone who owned a restaurant that was trying to rival the one with the secret ingredient would spend so much time trying to figure it out that they couldn't tend to their own restaurant. Case in point, the chum bucket. Mr. Krabs knew that he could get Plankton to waste his time worrying about a secret formula instead of actually running the chum bucket, and essentially eliminated his rival without Plankton even knowing it. And if you don't believe that a secret ingredient is alluring to guests and customers, just take a look at KFC. They're a chain that has survived off of its supposedly mysterious 11 herbs and spices, when in reality they're all just the basic cooking spices. Yet people will still vouch for it and say, but it has 11 herbs and spices though. That's because it's tasty food that differentiates itself from other fast food restaurants by adding a bit of mystery in the form of a secret ingredient. And that's what this Reddit user is suggesting that Mr. Krabs was doing, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. But it's important to point out that throughout the series, there have been a few hints as to what the Krabby Patty Secret Formula was, but none had fans scratching their heads as much as the idea of Plankton being the secret ingredient. Not Plankton himself, of course, but the microscopic species that he is. The idea came about from the Season 3 episode of SpongeBob Plankton's Army. In the episode, viewers met a ton of Plankton's hillbilly family members after he enlisted them to help steal the Krabby Patty Secret Formula from Mr. Krabs. And surprisingly enough, his plan sort of worked. As Mr. Krabs was beginning to close up for the night, Plankton and his literal army of relatives laid siege to the Krusty Krab and quickly subdued the owner. After they trapped Mr. Krabs, the Planktons opened the safe and got a good look at the Krabby Patty Secret Formula, although what they saw quickly sent them running back to where they came from. This was because, according to that little slip of paper, the Krabby Patty Secret Formula included Plankton as the secret ingredient. The formula read a pinch of salt, 3 teaspoons chopped onion, a cup of love, and the last ingredient was 4 heaping pounds of freshly ground plankton. It's no wonder that Plankton and his relatives ran off in terror as soon as they read it. They didn't want to be ground up and cooked for customers. And even though Mr. Krabs claimed that the formula was a fake that he planted to freak Plankton out, something still seemed kinda fishy. Pun intended, I guess. Not only would Plankton have made a great secret ingredient because whales and fish tend to eat it anyways, but it's also insanely abundant in the ocean. According to National Geographic, a blue whale is capable of eating up to 16 tons of plankton daily, and considering that they're microorganisms, that means they're almost everywhere scattered throughout the water. In other words, Mr. Krabs would be able to purchase a large amount of plankton for a very cheap price if it was the secret ingredient, so it's definitely a plausible theory. However, Mr. Krabs was most likely telling the truth when he told Squidward and SpongeBob that the formula Plankton found was fake. This means it's starting to look like nothing was the actual secret ingredient. Nothing just makes the most sense when you think about it from a business perspective and take a look at who the owner of the Krusty Krab was. Eugene Krabs. He was known to be one of the cheapest characters in the entire show, and that's not for a lack of funds either. He was clearly doing well for himself as a successful restaurant owner, but still he didn't want to spend a single penny that he didn't have to, and that's because he was very financially conscious, maybe a little too much. And that trait alone is one of the leading reasons why he was such a good businessman, and also the reason why he probably used nothing for his secret ingredients. First off, what's cheaper than nothing? Nothing. So Krabs wouldn't have needed to spend a single cent on extra ingredients for his best-selling patty, and on top of that as well, he knew he could keep the competition at bay once again without spending a dime. He could use the idea of a secret formula to distract his business rival Plankton. He knew that Plankton would be so focused on what made Krabs' food so much better than his that he wouldn't actually try to improve his own cooking. Instead, he would try to get the secret ingredient that's supposedly making it taste so good. Just think about how much time Plankton devoted to discovering the recipe for his rival's food when he could have just been practicing and becoming a better chef and improving his own business. SpongeBob has had a ton of episodes devoted to just that. And some of those plans were pretty complex too. In one of the earliest episodes, Plankton even designed a robot to look just like Mr. Krabs that he used to try to steal the formula. It was in the Season 2 episode Imitation Krabs, and Plankton clearly put all the effort that he could into building that robot to fool SpongeBob. Now, just imagine if he put that time and energy into actually improving his restaurant and learning how to cook good food. But instead, he just continued thinking that a restaurant named the Chum Bucket would eventually take off and become popular among fish. All he needed was the secret ingredient, but little did he know that he was most likely chasing nothing, at least according to this theory. Actually, Mr. Krabs using nothing as an ingredient may have worked too well, because at times it seemed like Plankton was willing to do anything to get his hands on the formula, even if that meant killing. In the Krusty Krab a la mode episode from Season 5, Plankton went as far as freezing his rival along with SpongeBob and the patrons of the Krusty Krab. And if he hadn't gotten cocky and fallen off the thermostat into his own trap, there's no telling that he would have unfrozen any of them, and that means he would have been willingly leaving them for dead. And all for what, you might be asking? Well, nothing really, because according to this theory, that's exactly what the Krabby Patty secret ingredient was. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This isn't to say that there aren't other possibilities out there that could explain the truth about Krabby Patties. In fact, there are a bunch. The first that comes to mind is one that was actually mentioned on the same Reddit thread that the nothing theory originated from. A user commented that they felt like beef could have been a major player in the Krabby Patty secret formula. They believed that it would explain why the Krabby Patties appeared to have a hamburger-like consistency, because that's what they were. They were made of beef. I mean, they have enough beef with Plankton, so they could load that hamburger up all day. Beef that Mr. Krabs would have imported from the surface somehow. As you'd expect, that wouldn't be an easy task, but it's also not something that can just be thrown out the window when you consider the fact that a land-dwelling squirrel was one of Mr. Krabs' acquaintances. So, if a squirrel could be sent down from the surface, there's no reason that beef couldn't be as well. In fact, it might just be a coincidence, but Sandy is known to have come to Bikini Bottom from Texas, which, if you don't know, is a state that's known for its cattle farming and beef. In other words, Sandy may have been Mr. Krabs' connection for premium beef imported from the surface to be used as his ingredients for his burgery-looking Krabby Patties. Though that's not quite as disturbing as the long-standing theory that Mr. Krabs used his own people to make his patties. You've probably heard the idea that Krabby Patties were actually made out of ground crab meat as the secret ingredient. And well, believe it or not, there is something to that theory as well. It would certainly explain why there are no other crabs in the Bikini Bottom. The only one we ever saw was Mr. Krabs. And it would also explain why Eugene wanted to keep his formula such a secret. He would seem crazy if the other citizens find out that he was killing, cooking, and distributing his own kind as food that people seem to love. But none of those theories seem to fit Mr. Krabs' business model as well as nothing does. Mr. Krabs would have been forced to pay for the beef or crab meat if that was what he used, but he wouldn't have to spend any money to lie to his patrons and tell them that their food was so good because he was putting something special in it if he was simply lying to them. The only question left to ask is, what do you think the real Krabby Patty secret formula is, and what are the odds that it's nothing at all? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing all the things that you guys come up with.